This is our top vineyard, and this is where we grow most of our production. Now, this is Bruce County, okay? So you got to remember our climate's pretty harsh. We're not like Niagara, we're not like Prince Edward County. We're about 2 steps colder than those guys, and it gets pretty cold here. To give you an idea, the winter before, we had a few nights get down to minus 38 Celsius. A lot of the grapes that you see down in Niagara and places like that, they're all vinifera, and they make excellent wines and beautiful production and stuff like that. But they can't take much cold. And so minus 21, minus 23, minus 25 Celsius, max as much as they can take. And so there was a bunch of amateurists or hobbyist grape breeders. And one of the main ones, the granddaddy of them all, was a guy by the name of Elmer Swenson. And so he lived in an old farmhouse, just like we have here. And he had 8, 10, 12, 15 rows of grapes behind the farmhouse, just sort of like what we got. And he would take this grape and cross it with that grape, and he'd use, it's the old-fashioned method, where you'd have a paper bag and Q-tips and you isolate it and all that sort of stuff. None of this modern technology with gene splicing and tissue culture labs and any of that stuff. He didn't have any of that. He just did it the old way. And so by 1967, the university actually had an open house one Saturday morning. And what they did is a typical university open house. They threw open the front doors, they invite everybody in, say, hey, come on in, see what the heck we're doing. And all of a sudden the back door of the classroom swings open, and in walks this mild, meek, short, very, very quiet, timid man, a dairy farmer, carrying a 6-quart basket of grapes. He walks up to the front of the room and he sets the basket on the front lab bench, right in front of everybody. And you can imagine it's caused a bit of a stir, and it sort of steals the head honcho's thunder. And people stop and they start to mill around, and next thing you know, a few people are plucking a few grapes off and they're trying this and trying that. And the head one guy says to Elmer, he says, where'd you buy these grapes? And Elmer says, I didn't buy them, I grew them. And the guy says, okay, fine, where are you from? You're from Florida, Georgia, California, where are you from? Elmer says, no, about an hour outside of town. And the head guy says, no way, you didn't grow these grapes around here. There's no way you could have done that. By this time, things are getting a little out of hand. And you know, Elmer sort of stole his roadshow and whatnot. So the guy basically says, look, if we're interested, we'll get back to you. We'll take your name and number, and that's the end of it. What happened was, there's a Canadian connection to this. There was a young 20-year-old lab rat from Saskatchewan working at the university that summer. And I got hold of him some years later on the phone, and he was telling me the story. He says, I was there that day that happened. And he said, that was first thing Saturday morning that Elmer did that. First thing Monday morning, the following Monday, me and another lab rat went and signed out the university pickup truck. By that time, we had Elmer's address, and we drove that hour and a quarter, hour and a half out of town to Elmer's farm to see what's going on. These two kids, these two 20-year-olds, right? And I can always remember his quote. He said to me on the phone, he said, Gary, we weren't out of that pickup truck 15 seconds at Elmer's farm, and we could tell that Elmer had a hell of a lot better gene pool in his backyard than we had with all the money we were spending at the university at the time from there. So it was kind of cool. 3 years later, or 5 years after the first encounter, they go and have another open house. Guess what? Elmer shows up again with another 6-quart basket of grapes. But this time it was one variety of grapes. And same sort of thing. He's now an employee of the university, right? He's a gardener, so, you know, that type of thing. And he shows up with a basket of grapes from his grapes at home on the farm. He comes in, he puts them on the counter, everybody sees them, and the same sort of thing. They look at it the whole bit right through, and Elmer puts up his hand and says, hold it. Hey guys, just a sec. He says, I don't want anything for these grapes. I don't want any recognition, nothing. All I want you to do, if you think they're worthy, is look at them, give them a name, and release them to the public free of charge. That's all I want you to do. Look at them, give them a name, and release them to the public. I don't want any recognition, nothing for it from there. It turned out that that variety was named not long after, and it was called Swenson Red. It was named after Elmer, and it went on to be one of the foundation varieties for a lot of what we're growing here today.